we understood from the past hearings that the concern was more about the overall land use than technical design issues. However, if the board has any of those questions, he's here and can answer them.
I don't have it. I'm trying to think.
I don't have any either. I'm assuming that if you need a civil engineer, you're talking about constructing something, and you'll follow whatever the zoning is and the conditions of any zoning if you're permitted to do this. So that's not something that we've got people who give permits, review plans, do all of that. It's not us.
Certainly, and we will be compliant with all applicable building
Yeah,
codes.
sure, of course.
Just wanted to make sure that the information is here if you had questions about it, that's
Great.
all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Okay, at this time, is there anybody here who wishes to speak as an opponent to the zoning?
Neutral party?
Hear from the sheriff first.
Okay.
My name is Connie Hilly. My address is 703 Shawhan Road, and my property does directly back up to this property.
Are you the farm that surrounds it?
No, what I wanted to say was the beautiful picture that was shown conveniently left out all of the residences around that property as well, mine of which is one. Also, that property is very extremely wooded, and if a boy did want to run away, I am assuming that would be a very logical place for him to run to and be hidden. And he could probably be hidden there very easily, to be honest with you. And that is a concern of mine because that's my property. I like to go down and use that property in those woods. And I feel like now I would have to have some concern that could there be a boy working down there. I mean, by their own admission, they are troubled youth. And nobody knows what any of us really could do. I mean, to say that, well, they've never done it does not mean that they might not do something in the future. And I think it is a concern because all of the people that border that property that are in the residential homes are 60 and above. And I feel like they are just not going to feel safe anymore. Now, whether that's warranted or not, I can't really say, but I'm going to say that they will not perceive to be as safe as they were before this. How could they be? I mean, how could we be? Also, by their own admission, none of these children are from Warren County. And I just think that speaks volumes if they are seeking to be, saying Warren County needs this, and yet they're not from Warren County. Miracles were spoken of, so I'm thinking in all of those counties that were mentioned, Greene and Franklin and Butler and Hamilton, could there not be a miracle of another property come available tomorrow? I mean, none of us knows that. I did not like just being labeled selfish. I did not appreciate that. And my question to you is, if this were going to be in your backyard, would you vote for it? And if you would not vote for it in your literal backyard, is it fair for you to vote for it in my backyard? Thank you very much for your time and understanding.
Sheriff, why don't you come up, please?
You said you were neutral, you don't wanna take a position on this?
I'm going to remain neutral on this, but I am going to provide you with some facts that I've already provided them to you. Those numbers are important for me to make an informed decision on how we respond to this. But there were some things that were generated today that made me ask some questions of my staff. One, based on the trends that we looked at, for me, being a cop, I'm suspicious by nature, right? That's what we are. We look for things, and suspiciously, the calls for service have dramatically changed in 2026 since the inception of that they need to move, right? So I try to understand that, and I hope that the changing in staff and changing in protocols and I hope that's the case, but hope is not a plan. And I am planning for 75 calls for service that were going to be added on to us. And Bernie's Place was brought up, and in 2025, we responded to, 51 calls for service at Bernie's Place. So far this year, we responded to 20 calls for service at Bernie's Place. But the most interesting thing that I need to bring up to you is when we pull this data from the city of Monroe, we pull the data for that address, the address of Restoration Ranch, not the data in the city of Monroe. So I've hired 2 city of Monroe police officers just this year. And I simply asked one of them, was there any crimes? I'll read it to you verbatim. Hey, did the kids from Restoration Ranch ever commit crime in the community when they run away? His answer is simply this. Now, I need to verify this, of course. I'm going off a cop that just hired in here the last 2 months. Yes, sir, we had many times where the kids would steal vehicles in the area to try to get back to where they were originally from. That is not in your numbers, nor do I have a way of capturing that because that would be a separate address of where that victim would be at. So to say that they don't go into the community, which was said, they don't go into the community and commit a crime, is not correct, right? I guess I was making a point. So, I just ask that you consider those factors. If we need to do some more research with the city of Monroe and try to deep dive, get into these calls for service, I'm preparing for 75 additional calls for service annually. And where the city of Monroe has 4 police officers on duty at any given point in time in their area, I have 1. So, thank you.
Before you leave, Sheriff.
Yes.
So, yeah, remember I asked the question of kids run away,
Yep.
what are they doing? And I believe that it's probably accurate that they're trying to get home, they're trying to get someplace else. And then I asked this question, which is, well, how did they get so far away on foot? Well, it makes sense that maybe one of them would steal a car, okay?
Absolutely.
That seems like a propitious thing you might do, not a legal thing, but also hitchhiking is something that obviously they've done
Yes.
too. So when the officer that you spoke to from Monroe mentioned about, I guess it was stealing a car, they would, of course, there would be a record of that event.
Absolutely.
And
And I
because
do
they'd
not
have
have
to be caught. And if it's a juvenile, that's a special category of thing, because how do you find out about juvenile crime when, in fact, frequently those records are not accessible? So it's different from, juveniles are different from adult criminals, because a juvenile record is not public record that you can get, is it?
The call for services, and that's what we would have to rely upon. The
Okay,
actual
because
call for
that's why I'm
service.
asking you the question,
Yep.
because the all of the records, because juveniles are treated differently from adults.
That is correct.
And their records are sealed. You can't go and get a record of a juvenile because, in the same way you can with an adult. So, but the call for somebody taking something, like a car, is something that is recorded. And does it identify the person, though, at the point where they capture the person or they arrest the person? Is that
Absolutely.
what
If
it
you
is?
have a charged suspect, whether they
Okay.
are a juvenile or not.
So you can actually find out that data?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And if you direct me to, I will.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
see
Sheriff,
it.
I mean, just, again, since we're starting to talk about the data, you've got us a list of every call to 903 Union Road, and in 2025, I see at least 2 theft of auto calls to that location, let alone anywhere else.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like they stole somebody's at the ranch's car, which was pretty convenient of them. They would know that, wouldn't they? They didn't tell us about it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank all the concerned citizens of Union Township for coming out today. I know it's a long hearing. As I've listened to the testimony, one thing strikes
Will you
me.
state your name?
What's
State-
that?
State your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Chris
address.
Cook, Union Township trustee. I am here with the full authority of the Board of Union Township today. In listening to the testimony that's been presented, both at the Planning Commission hearing and then at the Rural Zoning Commission, there's a commonality between all of it. And the commonality is that all of the testimony given in favor of this has been from people who have a financial interest in this project. We've not had one testimony from one individual who is a resident of Union Township who does not have a financial interest. And, you know, we've been accused of being greedy, that we should have millstones tied around our neck if we oppose this zoning change. And nothing could be further from the from the truth. I am proud that our township still allows its Board of Trustees to open our meetings in prayer. We did so last night, asking God for wisdom. And I ask God to give you wisdom today as you make your decision on this matter, that it's a zoning change. It's not about ministry. It's not about helping marginalized individuals. This is simply a zoning change, and it doesn't fit Union Township. You're going to hear from our residents today. It's not going to be about opposition to ministry. It's not opposition to Solid Rock Church or Restoration Ranch or the Bishop family or anything like that. It's certainly not opposition to the Oder family that owns the property. It's simply an opposition to this facility in our township where we have limited services. And there's just a whole lot of things. There was testimony given at the Rural Zoning Commission. These are gang members out of Franklin County, that they're not local people. Somebody said today, either in written slideshow or testimony given, that there were people from here. They're not. When you ask them if they are from here, no, none of the 10 are from here. We are importing people. This isn't us taking care of our own. You are bringing people to our area. And so I just think that's an essential part of this. So, you know, we have limited services. Testimony was given that they spoke with the fire department. That was a very casual conversation. Our fire department did not issue a report on this. This facility has very precarious driveway entrance off of Shawhan Road. It's not set up for this. It was set up to be a 2-bedroom house for some people that built the home to bring their family in for holidays. It's a very unique property, but it's just not set up for this. And I think the last piece that I think is important to understand is that I believe, should this zoning change be approved by your board, that it will go to referendum. So I do believe that the voters will ultimately decide whether this is going to be a facility that can be used for this purpose. Because our township, nobody is in favor of it. I have yet to find a person that said, yeah, that's a good idea to have these individuals here in this property. And the reason why is public safety. It's not about property values. It's not about anybody being greedy. It's none of that. It's about the fact that these young individuals have a propensity to walk into the neighborhood. And what it seems like from the pictures provided and some of the comments made by your board here, that it's surrounded by farmland. It's not. It's surrounded by homes. It's surrounded by a manufactured housing park to the due south. Right across a very narrow band of land across Shawhan is the entire city of South Lebanon with residential homes. The piece of land that you say is agriculture to the due north, that's a very narrow piece of land that goes right into neighborhoods. So it's not a mine, it's not surrounded by farmland, it's not like the Midwest group home. That would be a great place for these residents. It's out in the country, it's rural, not a whole lot of places to run, it's a good place. So I'm just gonna conclude by telling you that our Board of Trustees, which is in touch with our residents, know our residents, have fielded literally dozens and dozens of calls. Our Board of Trustees is unanimously opposed to this zoning change.
Trustee Cook, you brought up one point that I think is 100% in the purview of this board. I mean, we can get lost in the weeds, and let me say this, I appreciate everybody's being respectful, and you get to a slippery slope when you start talking about God empowers me to do this, God doesn't empower me to do this. I'm not wise enough to know that. I am wise enough to follow the law and what the law says about things that are inside of our purview. Even the schools, to some degree, I hate to say, are outside of our purview, but I'm concerned as a Kings resident, I'm concerned. But the law tells us to look at things like access to public safety. The sheriff just made some representations. So this road is not a collector road. Can you tell us a little bit about if all of a sudden there's 75 calls for law enforcement, and then there has been a history, admittedly maybe not recently, of fires or arson, things like that on the site, that if the fire department has to come down a non-collector road, can you talk a little bit, do you have a concern about that?
We have a lot of concerns about the public safety element. Matter of fact, I think that's most of the calls that we have fielded and most of the residents we've talked to, that is the concern. It's never been about property values, it's been about the public safety issue, and specifically with the fire department. Our fire chief did not write a report on this, and I'm not sure what the connection was, but he said he did a walkthrough. He did not produce a report. But the house sits on a hillside. I mean, it's difficult. I'm gonna be here in a few hours chairing a hearing tonight for the Warren County Board of Zoning Appeals. We are not allowed to take evidence. We're not allowed to do site visits. We used to be able to do that. And then there was litigation, and so we have to go off the packet with the presentation and the information that you're given. This 9 acres is on a hillside, straight up and down. And then the driveway comes in at a weird angle. So, yeah, there are concerns. I don't think that it's really conducive to have an ambulance get in and out. I know it's happened before, but I just don't think that fire trucks, I don't know where you'd park. If we had to get our tanker in there, we have a very large tanker truck to supply water for a firefighting incident. I don't really know that's really conducive to that. So we do have a lot of public safety issues, and I think those are primary above everything. We have concerns about, and you guys would understand this as the board, about the sheriff's department calls, because we receive our sheriff service for calls out of the South Lebanon Post. If that ever went away, which we hope it doesn't, because we're the beneficiaries of that relationship, response time goes, probably in Monroe, I don't know, I'm not a police officer or the son of a police officer, but, response times are probably 4 or 5 minutes maybe. In Union Township, if we didn't have that unique relationship, we would have probably 30 to 45 minute response times for a walkaway. And the testimony that we heard previously in the previous hearings was that, that's a pretty consistent thing that happens, walkaways, and because they're juveniles, they're not allowed to lay their hands on them, they have to call law enforcement. So I think there's a lot of concerns about public safety. There's a lot of things that people are relying on today that are in place to mitigate those concerns, and yet there isn't a plan, should those go away, to take care of that. So I wouldn't foresee Union Township starting their own police department. I can't tell you what future trustees would do, but I can with great confidence tell you that I don't think our board currently, we've never really discussed it. It's been a while ago since we were approached about starting our own police department. We're not interested in that. So we want to continue to rely upon the sheriff to provide those services. And I think it's an undue burden. I think it's just a bad, I'm all for ministry. If anybody's for ministry, it's me. If anybody's for prayer, it's me. I believe in all that. I believe in the power of God. I believe in miracles. I believe in all of that. But what I don't believe in is this property in this location right now. I think it's a bad time.
Trustee Cook, do, so I understand your point about, obviously, we know that there's a call and there's agricultural around it, but we also heard from the first woman that she lives nearby, and I've seen the overview. So there are homes that are on the other side of the cemetery. There's a lot of homes. There are homes in the area. There's no question about that. So, and I brought it up on Google Earth so I can see the entire territory there. So with regard to the road, which is the only reason why this doesn't work with its current zoning is because of the characterization of the road. And you mentioned something about a fire truck. I don't know that we know this, but I'm not sure that fire vehicles have been called in to the Restoration Ranch's current location. And I'm gonna ask them to tell me, have they ever been visited because somebody set a fire at their place? I mean, I grew up on a farm. My farm driveway was 1/3 of a mile long. Well, we had a fire at our home, and, you know, fire trucks got in there, but it wasn't easy. But it wasn't a daily occurrence. So are you thinking that a fire vehicle is a problem coming down that Shawhan Road?
I don't think there's a problem with Shawhan Road because it's not actually on Shawhan Road. I mean, it is, it's 507 Shawhan, but where I'm talking about coming in is their personal driveway
about
to the
driving
property.
the fire
The driveway
truck
to
on
the
their
property.
property.
Yes, not the road.
Okay, all right.
I mean, our fire trucks go out Shawhan Road all the time.
Okay, but,
So,
okay.
that's a normal
So
thing.
it's that then that question is, what's the incidence of a fire vehicle going in? Because I can see a sheriff vehicle going in, you know, relatively regularly at this place. I mean, it's not gonna be a rare occurrence. You know, obviously, there's been a big drop-off in 2026, which maybe is explained by what they've already told us. But fire trucks is a different matter. I mean, that's you don't call in a fire truck to just have a call because some kid is unruly or something like that. You gotta have a fire, don't you?
Not necessarily. I
I'm
mean,
just wondering.
a fire truck would respond to an
Well, yeah, they
incident.
do, something, you're right, they do.
But I have a
something.
feeling, just to put a bow on this, I have a feeling it's probably client dependent. You probably had a youngster that had a problem with that, because when I look at the sheriff's report on the first page, and this does go back to 2021, go with the pastor's comment, there was 5 fire dispatches within a 6-month period. So it depends on the clientele, that do they have a problem with that or not, but it can happen, obviously, because it did happen.
Okay, so I wanna go back to the question about what the real concern is. I doubt that it's really fire related. I'm guessing that the real concern is, I think the thing that we're gonna hear from the first person who spoke, and also from you, which is there going to be an escape, that is a runaway from this facility, which apparently has led to some stolen cars, all right, including maybe some of the staff's cars got stolen, but also, are they going to run away into the community and commit other crimes? Is that the primary concern that you have on behalf of your residents?
I would say that public safety in general is a
Well,
concern.
that's the
All
thing,
of
isn't
it,
it?
yes, that's a key element, absolutely.
The key element
Mr.
would
Grossman,
be-
the key element would be, we are concerned about walkaways, runaways.
And committing crime, not just simply running away to get back to their home or wherever they're going, stealing a car to get there or hitching a ride, but actually running away from the facility to commit a crime in that community. That's the concern.
That is a large concern
And then, I
of the
mean,
people.
so So when I'm thinking about that, because obviously that's true, I mean, some of these juveniles may have had a history of that, so you would think they would have maybe a propensity or the fact that they would do it more than just the average person because they've had a history of it. But then when you think about somebody running away from this facility, would they really run away, commit a crime, and come back? I mean, I just can't imagine that quite. I mean, and the reason why I ask that is it seems to me, and I'm just surmising here for a minute, it seems to me that if a juvenile is running away, they're not doing it to commit a crime in the community, they're doing it to get away from the home. Because if you're leaving to commit a crime and then come back, I mean, I wouldn't imagine that they'd be doing that. So I wonder how many, and I don't know if the sheriff can tell us this, how many, and when they're in Monroe, how many kids left that Restoration Ranch and committed a predatory crime in one of the neighboring areas of Monroe? Are we able, Sheriff, to get that data?
We can try.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because it's one thing for them to run away and steal a car, which obviously they're trying to get mobile and go and leave. But it's another thing, and where I live, there are people, juveniles, that have come in and broken into homes, broken into cars, broken into things to steal things. And so, and my community doesn't live near the Restoration Ranch. But at the same time, I think that that's a legitimate concern that your community has, and I'd like to know what the kind of incidence of that is and how big of a concern it is.
I have another concern I'd like to just bring up, if you don't mind, and that is the concern that we haven't been given all the data. So, Mr. Bishop testified at the Rural Zoning Commission that he had never been broken in on. His house is adjacent there to the Solid Rock, and he hadn't been broken in. But in later testimony that was brought out and not refuted, these are okay, you have your chance, not refuted, was that an individual broke into his home. Okay, the testimony was given that his home was broken, that his garage, whatever, his property was broken into, and that he pressed charges on the individual. I don't know. That was the testimony that was given and not refuted. So I think, you know, I just hear different pieces as I listen to all this testimony. Somewhere in the literature, I didn't have time to research it here while this was going on, but you know, it was said that these are our people from Warren County, that these are Warren County residents that have been put into the system somehow. And then when you ask them directly here today, that is not the way it is.
Well, I think
And we
the
this
testimony-
keeps coming up.
I
This
think
keeps
the
coming up.
statement, Trustee Cook, was that currently, I don't think that they have any Warren County residents. But that is boys that are originally from Warren County, but they have had many of them in the past. It fluctuates. I think that's what they're saying, is that sometimes they've got Warren County boys and sometimes they don't. So it's not that I don't think that, they don't exclude non-Warren County boys from coming to the place, nor do they exclude Warren County. I think that they get what they get. And sometimes it's Warren County, but they've got, I think that's what their testimony was, or their statements were, that they do have Warren County boys.
Just not currently.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's what they said.
Do you want to speak to the
Yes.
break-in?
Yeah,
Just
to
a comment.
address that, I misspoke a little bit the last time I was here, just because of I've had 9 concussions, so but about 5 years ago, and I had forgotten this, I don't think it's so. Maybe 5 years ago when the program was in its infancy, and it was a problem because they were under different, leadership. They were taking anyone, violent, fire starters, all this. So yes, we were getting the cops called a lot, only until the last couple of years is the program really changed. No one broke in my house, no one broke in my garage. And I totally forgot this because it was so insignificant. Some boys left the home, they went in my barn, in my unlocked tack room, and they walked in and they took like a pair of cheap Spurs that weren't even mine or something, and maybe a bridle, and they brought it back or something, so insignificant that I forgot about it. And I was encouraged by either, I don't remember, by the police or the former director, said, yes, you need to press charges to make an example to the other kids that they do not come on your property uninvited. So I misspoke when I said never. I said never have they come on my property, and I apologize, I did forget about that one thing, but there was no break-in, there was no robbery, robbery if you, well, I guess technically it was, but they brought the stuff right back. Yeah, so that was the deal,
You know, so
5 years ago.
Reverend Bishop, may I ask a question about that? So is what happened is that a boy or two boys, I don't know,
Two boys.
left inappropriately the Restoration Ranch and went to your property, which was right next door, close
Right.
by, because you're bringing the boys over there to ride horses. So they knew about your stable.
Yeah.
And they knew about your horses there, and they knew about your tack room probably.
Right.
And they then went into your unlocked stable, which was against your rules, obviously against the Restoration Ranch's rules.
Right.
And they took something that was not theirs from your stable, correct? Did they go back to the Restoration Ranch then?
Yeah,
With the stolen property?
they brought it back,
Well, that's key. That's
Yeah.
what the general thing to do.
yeah.
So
And
they
they
went
apologized, and
back.
they still call me.
Okay, well, hang in there. So they went back with the stolen goods, and how did you catch them?
What's that?
How did you catch them? Because they obviously left, maybe you knew about that, maybe the ranch knew about it. They went to your place, stole something, went back.
I didn't know about it until the next day, the staff caught them, or whatever,
Okay, but the point is, they actually had seen something at your ranch that they wanted, and they left, stole it, and took it back with them, and you caught them. Is that right?
the
The
staff
ranch
caught
did.
them.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, there you go. Thank you.
Just in conclusion,
It happens.
can I conclude my
Yep.
comments?
You bet.
I'd just like to say that this is what the government of the people, by the people, and for the people looks like. And I would encourage you, as a board, to give great deference to the residents of Union Township, not outside influence, not paid actors, but the residents. Their testimony, you're going to hear from them, and as their board of trustees, that you would give deference to Union Township and what we want in our community.
And by the way, trustee Cook, and I heard you and the previous person who spoke talk about some disparaging comments made about you or about them or being selfish and things like that. I didn't hear that today. So did that happen?
Well, I mean, somebody stood up and said, the mark of true religion, when you wanna talk about the mark of true religion,
Okay, I'm
being
sorry.
widows and orphans,
So that's-
when you wanna talk about all the greedy folks in Union Township with their worry about property values, these were the comments that were made from this podium in front of many of the people that are here tonight.
So I
We
was-
took great indifference to that,
Yeah.
that a preacher would stand here and accuse people who are opposed to a zoning change, okay? That people opposed to a zoning change would be criticized in the name of Almighty God. There are a lot of God-fearing residents of Union Township, I being one of them. And I don't appreciate it when I stand in opposition to something based on a zoning change, not the ministry, not helping the downtrodden. And it's, you know,
Well, I
for
stand
somebody to
corrected.
say that was a very disparaging comment.
Sure, I stand corrected because as Commissioner Young said that there was the word selfish used.
And greedy, and some other terms were used in previous meetings.
That's what I was asking
And-
about.
and-
I was
and
asking.
I've not heard, you know, I've talked to so many of our residents on their porches, on the phone, had numerous conversations along with the other trustees.
I was asking
I
about
haven't
the-
heard one person, not one,
See, I was-
make
I
a
was-
greedy comment
See, I
about
wasn't,
property values.
I wasn't at the previous, there's two other meetings that have
Yep.
occurred. Did you attend both of those?
I did,
And were disparaging comments made during those meetings?
at least one of them.
Okay.
At least one of them found it very rude, very insulting, and It shouldn't be done that way. It just should not be done that way. That's not the way to handle your business.
We appreciate you representing your citizens.
Thank you.
My name's Connor Ford. I own property at 3480 Dry Run Road, just down the street from Shawhan. I'm speaking today because I had several people stop by asking if I would come back because I spoke at the last meeting. Some things that I took note on was that I noticed on the zoning thing, healthcare said prohibited, but yet this is a healthcare facility. They've been documents of apparently staff stealing drugs from these children. I come from a background of facilities, being raised in and out of these facilities I got sober when I was 39 years old, and I've been sober 7 years. And what I can tell you is some shrubbery is not going to keep these kids and unlocked doors from leaving. They may not have committed the crimes, just put yet on there, because when desperate times call for desperate measures, that's what they're gonna do to get what they want. They're in the community of Monroe right now, so there's gas stations, there's the Racino, there's all the fast food stuff. There's not neighbors, there's not community, there's not children playing in the park across the street. So our concerns as a community is not, I started a 501c3 to do this. We looked at the Oder Ranch and we realized, because we were gonna do equestrian therapy, and we realized that is not a place for equestrian therapy on the side of a hill. Well, how many horses can you keep there? One? Or, that's really not my expertise, but by looking at the property, it doesn't seem very fitting. They mentioned these kids are leaving looking for connections. 84% of kids that are neglected, juveniles, are reported as have substance abuse disorders. We have a trailer park right to the south. We have Bernie's house. We have meth addicts running around South Lebanon. These guys will get what they want. They will commit more crimes. It is inevitable. I lived it for 20 years of my life. I spoke with Lawrence years ago when I was starting up my 501. Thought they had a great program, but to put this in a residential community is outlandish. Every place I've ever been, if the door was open, I ran. We then commit crimes. We don't want to commit crimes, but when we're pushed to whatever means it is, that's when we commit crimes. Something else that I was looking at is the staffing issues that were reported in the last meeting that was here. One of the staff members had one of the students or clients looking for his lost pistol in his car. What does that say about the staff at these places? One of the staff members was accused of assault on a police officer the day before he started his job at Restoration Ranch. I don't know if that was mentioned. Anyways, I speak from a lot of experience living in and out of these places most of my adult and childhood life, because I come from some really ugly background, hooked on opiates, crack cocaine, you name it. If it was available, that's what I did. That's what these kids are susceptible to. They're already living in these environments. They're court ordered here. They don't want to be here. I've lived it, they're gonna run. Granted, can they change? Success rate on drug abuse right now is 4 to 6%. So if that doesn't say, not to mention, we're not, like they've said many times already, these kids are coming from inner city Dayton, inner city Columbus, inner city Cincinnati. How many are coming from here? Not very many. Is there only 10 in there right now because we're about to run out of a place to go? So we're not taking that many right now. What happens when there's 21 of them in there? The more kids and more create more chaos, right? Why are 18 and 19-year-old kids with 11-year-old boys? So those are the concerns. The concern, I have a 3-year-old. I have 10 acres right down the street with my wife. I fought my guts out to change my life. It wasn't because of a facility that did it. It was because I was at my bitter end and I finally decided to change when I was 38 years old. And I don't want my wife or any of these residents to have to worry about walking around the side of their barn and getting whacked by a kid who's desperate to steal their car. That stuff doesn't happen. Those opportunities aren't in Monroe like they are in a neighborhood where they can duck off and hide and go to the trailer park and go down into South Lebanon. My buddy just cleaned up the middle of South Lebanon. He owns the laundromat and where Kemba Credit Union is. Spent every ounce of energy he could to clean that area up. Why are we bringing more stuff into this neighborhood that doesn't need this? And I'm all about helping. I'm a God-fearing man. God saved my life if it wasn't for that. So this is not a religion or a topic based on that. But to stand here and quote scripture about tying millstones around our neck and we should be thrown in the ocean for not taking care of widows and orphans, and then the spewing of lies that came out, and then we get up and leave during the middle of the last meeting because the old staff members came and spoke about really what was going on at this recovery ranch. That's where we start to have a problem as a community. And so with that, I'll shut it down. Thank you.
Hi, Ryan Willis, 1391 Arapahoe Drive. So I live kind of a hop, skip, and a jump from where this planned community would be. And so based upon kind of objective facts, I'm just asking, what kind of a safety risk are you willing to look past? Are you willing to tell me, my son, my daughter, who are 11 and 13, that it's okay, that this is a burden of society and that they ought to bear that? One of the points that was made earlier on was that this is the only site, and yet this gentleman spoke, and it seems to me that he has property that could be available adjacent to where they are right now, that they might be able to build. I think if we go back by way of history lesson, when you approved this the first time, it's important to note kind of the caveats that were there. The caveats were, it was basically near Monroe, but there was hardly any residential places around it. You had Solid Rock Church that was basically sponsoring it and saying, we're going to stand behind Restoration Ranch and we're going to let them build a building there. But you've never asked the $25,000 question. Why didn't it get done? Why is there a divorce between Restoration Ranch and Solid Rock Church? What we've heard today is, well, Solid Rock Church has decided that they're going to have a school and they want to do a Christian school. What's really happening, and it's just common sense, is there's a divorce here. And there's a divorce between the church and Restoration Ranch because Restoration Ranch is a security risk. And the members of their church and the folks that are running the church have said, enough's enough, you're out. If this was the only place that this Restoration Ranch could go, my question is, where are the facts to back that up? Where are the facts to back that up? Because that point that they're getting evicted was not disclosed during the rural zoning board meeting. Why not? At some point in time, credibility ought to matter to you. It ought to matter to you that you're getting half-truths and pieces, and the story keeps changing a little along the way. Commissioner Grossman raised the issue about, hey, there's such a drastic change in 2026 about the number of calls that Monroe Police is getting, because they've changed their standards. So my question to you is, if you approve this today, what keeps those standards in place? Are you gonna put a caveat that by changing the zoning, that they have to maintain those same standards and they can't change them? Because the day after you approve it, and they change it, now what have we got? Now we've got a real quandary. And who's gonna bear that burden? And that's what I wanna say to you. You are in a very unique situation. You don't live next to where Restoration Ranch wants to live. I do. I have, like I said, 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. And I value to the nth degree their personal safety. And if somebody threatens their life, I'm gonna do what I have to do. And I don't care whether it's a 13-year-old, a 15, a 16, 18-year-old. It's not gonna matter to me. And it's not gonna matter to the people that are around there. These are an awful lot of people who have weapons for personal safety in their homes. Do you want to be the ones that are basically on the record having voted putting this location in place, only to see on the news, oh man, we had a shooting. We had a shooting 3/4 of a mile from Restoration Ranch when some kid tried to break into a house and got shot and killed. That, you're putting them right in the middle of a residential area, whether you like it or not. This, at some point in time, common sense has got to come to the forefront and say, hey, look, I'm not opposed to what they're doing. This is just a horrible location. And it may be that there's no great location in Warren County. So be it. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions when those hard decisions are just right in front of us. But the safety of my children and the safety of our community matters. And so far, when I've listened to Restoration Ranch, it's been one half-truth after another. There's one consistency about Restoration Ranch, and that is it's inconsistent. Things have changed every step of the way. 6 months going in, well, we're going to build a building. Well, we didn't build a building. Well, what else has changed? Well, our incidence rate at the Monroe Police Department has gone way up. Oh, but we've changed our standards. We've learned now. We're such great guys, but the church is kicking us out. It's like, guys, come on, common sense here. Why would you take a problem child institution that basically has probably the best location it can have right now, and yet they're getting evicted, and put them in the middle of a residential area? That makes no sense whatsoever. None, zero. And like I said, I'm all for trying to help some of these kids. But this isn't helping them, and it's not helping us. And at the end of the day, I just feel like we talk about the well-being of children, like that should matter. And I'm in agreement that it should. But what about the kids in our community? Don't they matter? I mean, I would have brought my daughter really wanted to come today. She's 13, and she wanted to see how the sausage gets made. And I said, well, no, you can come to the Rural Zoning Commission meeting, but this one, no, we'll hold off. I mean, you've got a camp to go to, have at it. But she, like I said, and my son are the most precious things in my life, besides my wife. And I just don't see in any way, shape, or form how, from a common sense standpoint, this makes my children's lives safer. And I'm going to ask the simple question, which is, which of you is going to answer when this goes south? Who's going to be the one to write the insurance check and say, hey, I'm wholly responsible for that decision? We were not putting it in Springboro, right? We're not putting it in Heritage Club, right? We're not wanting to put it in Deerfield Township. And I get it. And I said in the last meeting, we're not a dumping zone for Warren County's problems and some of these kids. I mean, they're troubled. They're telling you they're troubled. You don't take my word for it. They're telling you they're troubled. Why would you take that troubled circumstance where basically it's got everything it needs right now and yet it's getting evicted? That ought to tell you something. And I'm just saying, this is a huge common sense. This is like a common sense litmus test. Just use common sense and say, we are not willing to accept a degradation of safety for our community members. It's not worth it. I mean, if you're telling me that I'm less worthy than some of the other people because, oh no, it's a burden I should have to bear, my safety's not important, and my children's safety is not important, I can't sign off on that. I don't agree with that for a second. It is not a permissible risk of safety to put this in the place that they want to put it in. It's just that simple.
Hello, I'm Tim Combs, lifelong resident of Warren County, grew up on Shawhan Road, and my mother still lives there, so I'm speaking on behalf of her, a widow of 89 years old that lives there on Shawhan. Where I grew up, we were within walking distance or bike ride to the cemetery and also this property, so I'm very familiar with it. I'm going to try to not be redundant because I echo much of what was just said, as well as this first speaker. It on the map looks one way, but when you live there and you walk the area, you realize how close proximity this particular property is to all the homes, neighborhoods, and people of both children and elderly adults that would be at risk if someone were to leave Restoration Ranch. There was also a comment about if not next to a quarry, where else? Well, I would challenge that. One, the quarry is just on one side, and as multiple people have spoken, you know, there's residents all around that, and even the wooded area is very small. But if you think about why not next to a quarry, well, it's a huge, deep lake, and so that puts people who would be running away from something very much at risk themselves. There's also the river that's very close. So when you look at it, you have woods that they can travel through, you have a lake that they could drown in, you have a river that they could get caught in, or you have residents that they could disturb. No direction they would go would be a safe direction, either for them or the community. So that's something I would like for you to think about. The other comments that I have are really want to stimulate your thought. I don't have the answer. Maybe others do. But early in the proceedings, their question was, why did the last committee vote this down? And there were two primary reasons called out. And one of them was, hey, there was a property already rezoned for this. And there's been a lot of discussion about that property and such. My question that I would ask, or a couple questions that I would ask you to think through is, if SRC is still a strong advocate and supporter of Restoration Ranch and the concept, why are they not allowing use of that previously zoned area that you did and looking for a different location for the school? There's been a lot of discussion of, hey, there's nowhere else that we can put Restoration Ranch. Well, is there also nowhere else that the school could go if Solid Rock Church is still an advocate and supporter of both their concept of the school and Restoration Ranch? And if they are still a supporter and Restoration Ranch has been successful there at that property, is there enough property to put the school as well? And we may say, well, would that be safe? I don't know. We're saying that it's safe in and of itself, Restoration Ranch. So if they had a school right there, wouldn't that be a natural place for these students or youth to possibly go to school? If the land would support both, and if Solid Rock Church really wanted to commit themselves to supporting both the mission of Restoration Ranch as well as the school. And when we're thinking about the fact that, you know, one of the big arguments has been there's nowhere else to put this, I have to go back to the numbers. You know, who you had here speaking today, everyone had a vested interest in this, but was there an independent review that said there really is nowhere else already zoned and laid out to facilitate something of this nature? Because Restoration Ranch has its own needs, and if you had a list of what those needs are and you really looked at property and real estate available, do we have somebody independently that looked and said, no, there's nowhere else, this is the only property that's suitable? What we're going off of is those parties that are involved in the transaction, and so that makes it a little skeptical. Sorry, let me catch myself up. There were also quotes about the statistics and how many were from Warren County, and we know at the moment that's a very low number. Well, when we're looking at what properties could support this, and they're saying this is the only one, why are we looking in Warren County? You know, if that's your point of reference, most currently are not from Warren County. So maybe that view needs to be widened so that they're looking at a broader area of where this could be located that actually is more pertinent to where the youth are coming from. And if now is just a snapshot in time, why are we not looking at some statistics over like a 5-year basis? So within the last 5 years, how many of those youth came from Warren County, as well as with the sheriff's report over the last 5 years, what's been the number of issues that have stimulated from that property. So I just want to encourage you to think through and ask the question, why are they being asked to move? Why are they not using the area that was zoned? Why is it that the school needs to replace that versus Restoration Ranch? And why is that the only place that we're looking within Warren County when that's not even where most of them are coming from currently, and we don't know over the last 5 years whether it is or not. So just wanted to stimulate those thoughts and, like I said, echo the last speaker on much of it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Leslie Oberlin. I live at 3441 Harvest Ridge in Oberlin Springs, which is a community about a quarter-mile, a 5-minute walk from this property. And I just had a couple things I wanted to bring up. One is that I heard their realtor say that she only looked in Warren County. So when they say it's an all or nothing situation, I think they didn't do their job. And when I come across limited availability, it makes me look for more solutions and not just say there aren't any more. So I think that it's not really the only property that would be available for this type of business. Last hearing at the Rural Commission hearing, there was a really interesting gentleman who worked for them, who no longer worked for them, that ran the horse therapy. And I've been a horse owner, and this property, just to clarify what Chris didn't really say well, sorry Chris, but is that there's a main road and then it is a hair clip turn to get into the driveway. So a fire truck could only come from one direction. I don't think it could come from the house being on the left to turn and go down, because it also is a hill straight off of Shawhan. And when you look at the map, it looks like it's one big piece of property, but it is such a steep hill, I wouldn't be able to walk all the way up without stopping at least once. It's a huge hill, much bigger than the Oberon Springs Hill. And it looks like it's at least half that pasture, so I can't imagine they could have more than 2 or 3 horses there, and very limited pasture land. But the gentleman who used to work for them in the horse therapy was leaving. And said he was leaving the state that next day, so he's not here to talk. But he was really clear about how inefficient that whole part of their program is, and that there was lots of issues with it. It appears to me after today that they only have one person working there that's been there more than a year. So a lot of turnover. So with new people comes expectations that get changed, and then probably more new people. So I feel like as an organization, they may be just a little bit sketchy. I've been listening to the story kind of change over the last couple meetings too, which has been a little disconcerting. I think boys like this need a lot of exercise and they need activity. So I love the horse part of it, but I don't think it's realistic on this property. And they also talk about a gymnasium, but they were really powerful about that in the rural meeting, but then really didn't bring it up now, except to say they didn't have the funds for it yet, and it would be down the road. So I think it'd be really detrimental to not have a place where these kids could exercise and work out some of their energy. It's also a 3-bedroom home, and if they have to be out by the 1st of September, I run a home building company as well as a development company, and I don't see how they could get more than 3 bedrooms in there by the 1st. Maybe they have a plan for that. I'd like you guys to investigate how they would change that, how you get 11-year-olds to 19-year-olds sleeping in the same house, how many rooms they get, how many are per room. I think that needs to kind of be evaluated. And I just also want to say that the trailer park is a 1-minute dash, and that's where most of the drugs would be gotten from the kids. It's pretty well known in the entire area that there's a lot of access to drugs. It's literally a 1-minute dash. And it's a 5-minute walk to our community where we have 47 kids who are under 14, and they are also God's children. And I do think that we have to pay attention to just all the great hiding places and all the opportunities for these kids to jump from that house, and where do they go, and how do, what are they doing, and I think that's been probably beaten to death, so I won't really plug on that one too much more, but those are just the points that I would like you to consider.
Can I ask you a question? Where's Overland Farms at?
Oberlin Springs is right at the curve, at the bottom of the hill. It's on the same road.
It's on Cheyenne?
It's on Shawhan. It's, if you're facing the property, it's to the left. It's to the north. It's 142 acres. We have 137
I know,
homes.
I was at your groundbreaking, and I was there when you were building homes,
Yeah,
and your home building company was at Pendergrass?
Pendragon Homes.
Pendragon, that's
Yeah.
right. Okay, I see where you're located.
Yeah. So we have 137 lots there. We have 26 left to sell, but we've got over 100 families living there.
And that trailer park you're talking about, do you know how many, that's a huge trailer park that's right down the road from this.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of, I'll ask the sheriff if there's a lot of crime coming out of that.
I think that would be a really great question, and that's really where a lot of the drugs are. I mean, that's where people are buying drugs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kelly Laswell. I'm at 595 Lester Lane, and I live right down the road from this property. I've heard everyone speak in great points. I want to bring kind of a personal touch to it, because I lived at 747 Shawhan Road, which is actually a neighboring property, and it's unique like this one in the fact that it's a farm on an extreme hillside, which is what this property is. My family moved there when I was a young child, the same age that they're going to be taking in. And we had horses. I showed horses for years as a child, and we were active in church, which is another thing that this group instills in the people that go there. But I will tell you this, putting something like that on an extreme hillside, it's miserable. I lived it. I think instead of having an attorney volunteer for them, I think they should have got a psychologist. And I just need to point that out. The other thing is, if we're concerned about safety and they're taking in 21 boys, I didn't have to compete with 20 other boys in one level of a single family home. I had 2 siblings, but we weren't fighting, and I wasn't worried about them. So I can tell you, even with 2 siblings, wasn't around the house. If you tried to play, it's a hillside. You can't go out and kick a ball. I made the analogy of that ball kept rolling right down that hill into that mine, okay? It happened, and I ended up playing in the mine. I can't swim, so I guess I got lucky I didn't drown, okay? So my point is, if we're concerned about the safety of minors, they don't have a choice here. This is going to be discussed by commissioners. This is going to be discussed by people who have a financial interest. As they said themselves, this is a business, and they're paid, and they're desperate. Desperate people do very crazy things, and they're being evicted. So they have to find a place to put these young men. And if they put it on this property, it's not, in my opinion, a place anyone would want to be. They're going to run off. whether they could be perfectly innocent running off, I just want to get home, but the fact is they're going to have and desperate people who's trying to do this, and also desperate young men do some crazy things. In addition to that, I know this is zoning. I gave my pitch about safety, and I had enough injuries. I can tell you it's a hillside. I showed horses. Having horses on a hillside is ridiculous, and I do mean ridiculous. It causes injury to the horses. It causes injury to the people riding them. I've had banged up fingers and everything because it is an extreme hillside. For that reason, we had to finally move. You can't have horses and show horses and be an equestrian and live on a hillside. It's just ridiculous. So we moved across the street. So I'm still around. I'm still part of the neighborhood, but it's not on a hillside. And then since it is zoning, I want to point this out. I drive by the property constantly. It is out there. It's a spectacle, but it's a nice spectacle in the sense that the current owners keep it fairly clean. Doesn't have a lot of dumpsters. It doesn't have a lot of parking. Lot filled up. The only flat ground was created by Mr. Oder. He wanted to have what I characterized as this watchtower looking over his mind. That's why it's this extreme hillside going up to a single family home. They would drive in with their Escalade, park in the garage, and they'd look over what they paid for all they had. So that's what this is. So whenever they say that this is the perfect place, on paper it looks great. It's 9 acres. It looks great. It's got a barn. It's got a house. Warren County apparently is allowed to cram 21 children in the lower level. Okay, that's not my place to judge whether that's right or wrong, but if they could do it, okay. But when it comes to the zoning, it is that hillside. And also, the road is challenging. I've driven by when there's been an ambulance parked up against the gate, and you have to come in from one direction. And if you get out, you have to like carefully back out. I watched it done. It's tricky. So getting a fire truck, oh my gosh, that would be a nightmare. In addition to that, they've drawn in this gymnasium. So I know that the hillside's not a real viable option to play around. So what do these 21 young men do? They're stuck in this house. So they build a gymnasium, but as a resident, we're protected because as a resident, like you can't build all these buildings close to the road. They have to be at least even with your house or back behind the house. Well, not with what they've drawn in. Their drawings show that gymnasium shoved up against the road. It's closer to the road than all these other buildings are. So they're gonna try to do whatever they wanna do. Okay, as I grew up, I owned a landscape company. The other thing about what they proposed with this zoning change is they don't really want to plant any plants. They feel that because they're a charitable operation, they don't need to do that, and they got plenty. Well, I looked at the designs. Today, you can see everything. You can drive by, see the pool, if they're going to fill it in. You drive by, but you see everything. The plants they have is not sufficient, and their drawing isn't either. So I live there, so now I'm going to have to, if this were to pass, not only about the safety, but I'm driving by, now I gotta look at dumpsters, now I gotta look at a gymnasium built up against the road, and there are no plants, and they have no intention, according to what they wanna do, to actually do what they're required to do under this zoning. So, that's my 2 cents, I just wanted to share.
Good afternoon. My name is Janelle Groff. I am a member of the Board of Education at Kings Local Schools. And I understand we are in a zoning meeting, but zoning and schools do a little bit overlap. We will always come to you and ask you to keep zoning so that we're not adding tons of more kids because it's expensive to educate children. We are in the business of educating kids. Those boys move all of us when they come here. And I said this at the last meeting, and I'll say it again. I mean no disrespect to the people that work at Restoration Ranch. I applaud you on the hard work that you do. But what I will say is the woman that mentioned that these kids probably won't be at King's, she's right. But we will be paying for them. So the reason I came today is just to discuss the financial impact that this has on the school district. Currently, we receive $15,686 to be exact in property taxes. That will go away because this will become a nonprofit. But that's a minuscule amount compared to the rest of the money that we're talking about. Unfortunately, no one from Restoration Ranch reached out to our school district to talk about how this is going to affect our district. So what we did as a district is we reached out to Monroe local schools to understand and learn from them what this meant. Monroe confirmed that all but one student were outplaced because of behavioral issues. So that is correct. One student went to Monroe and they paid for them to be educated at Monroe. If you outsource a student for behavioral issues, like you mentioned, Mr. Young, like the alternative school or anything, there is a significant cost to that. The cost to Kings to outplace to our Warren County ESC would be $74,700 per student for behavioral issues. If you take 21 students, because keep in mind, we're now more than doubling the size, we are looking at over $1.5 million to educate these kids each year. But again, that's not at Kings, that's to an outplaced source. Not to mention transportation costs and additional staff just to manage the whole process. Because if you have kids coming in and out, we're gonna have to hire somebody that's gonna manage all of that. So the burden goes to our taxpayers in the Kings Local School District. There was a question about how much it costs to educate a kid at Kings. The current cost right now is $15,022 per year to educate a student. The state gives us $33.97. That's right. $3,397 of the $15,000 is all we get from the state. There is potential that if a student from Restoration Ranch came over to Kings, we might be able to recoup that state money, but the rest of the shortfall from that $74,000 minus the $3,000, that would all lie on the Kings Local School District. So please, again, nothing against the program, nothing against their mission, but this is just not sustainable for our school district to pay this much money out to educate kids that aren't even Warren County residents, even more so Kings residents.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Because I asked this question, I think it was to Lauren Klaus, and that dealt with, and I think that Commissioner Jones confirmed this, because I didn't understand this, and that is that the school system from which these boys come is responsible to pay for their education and their schooling, even though they're not actually going to that school any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I didn't understand this, so I asked questions about it. It seems like an eon ago. and how that worked. And they answered, and I believe that Commissioner Jones also confirmed this, that it is the school system from which the boy comes that pays for their education when they're here in Warren County, wherever they go. Is that not accurate according to you?
That's not accurate. According to Monroe, who we called to understand how the money works, they did not get any money except for the state money that is allocated per student.
So the comment about the fact that under the law of Ohio, when you have a placed juvenile in a facility outside of the county where they were originally in a different school. So remember, I talked about Cincinnati Public Schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to your knowledge, in your conversation with Monroe, that's not accurate?
It's kinda accurate. And this is where it gets a little hairy, I think, is they're required to reimburse a court-ordered placement into the district. So if Kings were to take a child from Franklin schools and take them and they put them into Kings, Franklin would reimburse Kings for that amount. However, that's not really where the kids go to school. You take them because of behavioral issues or what have you, and you take them to the Warren County ESC. The Warren County ESC charges a fee of, boom, $50,000, $70,000, whatever.
$74,700.
But yet, Franklin is reimbursing you for the cost of just the public education side and saying, in the state law, it says, well, that's on you. You're deciding to send the kid on.
Yes.
I think that's the way it works.
I'm still really confused about this, and I'd like to get the answer to it, not hearsay, not opinions, not statements. I'd like to know, and I'm gonna ask, because we're probably not gonna decide this today, we're gonna deliberate later, but I wanna know exactly how that funding works. And right now, I still don't understand it. And, there's gotta be a clear answer to this.
I'd be happy to find a clear answer for you.
No, that's okay, you don't have
But
to.
I can tell you what we know, and we know that Monroe was not reimbursed for those excess
But you
costs.
see, I wanna actually know how it's supposed to work from people who are administering this program and actually funding it. And that's why I'm asking you. And asking Monroe is interesting, but that's now bringing in another set of people that are not here today for me to ask questions about, or us to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
I really do want to, I do think this can be a significant issue, although I'm not sure that the addition of 21 students is, I mean, I don't know how the school funding works really well, except I pay property taxes, which is 75% for schools. So, you know, I do want to know the answer to this question. I want to know exactly how this works.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me to sit here today and give you an education on school funding would take days.
You know, I'm not asking you.
Yes, I know you are not. But I will say it's very complicated.
Well, I understand millage rates, and I understand schools put on levies for operating and for capital costs. There's different types of levies they put on, some that stay forever and some that disappear.
But these are operating costs, and these are operating costs that we would not recoup.
Yeah, that's what
And
I wanted,
and
that's what I
we
want
are
to understand.
estimating $1.5 million in unrecouped
So I want to
expenses.
understand how this system works, that's all I'm asking.
I understand that, sir.
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ann Miller. I live at 1627 Arapahoe, just a little less than a mile from this location. And I did send a letter with some exhibits to the board, and I trust that you received copies of the letter. And I just want to raise a couple issues. I did grow up on a farm on Union Road and rode horses down Union Road when I was a child, past this property. It's a very flat area.
You're talking about the one that's
The one
currently
that they're currently at. So it's very immutable for horses and equestrian. Now, I would encourage, if you can, to do a site visit to this property, and you will verify that there is a steep drop-off. If you look at the property within the property lines, there's only a small portion that's flat. So it's inappropriate to ride horses up and down that hillside. It would not be good for the horses. It could create a lot more dangerous riding for the boys. And there's not enough outdoor recreational area that's available right now, because you can't really play sports or exercise on the severe hillside. The second point I want to point out is the driveway into the site. With the additional parking that they're going to put in there, I'm not sure even EMT vehicles will be able to do a turnaround and get back out. And backing out, as people have said, is very dangerous. There's a blind hairpin turn. I trust there's no fire truck that could get down in there and turn around. So I'm concerned about that. The internal workings of this house, they've not identified what they're gonna do. If you're gonna have, I think, up to a total of 33 people in the house, not just the 21 boys, but staff, I don't think there's any fire suppression in there, and I'm concerned that that's a big issue. Along with the issue that the surrounding area has the attractive nuisances that people have spoken about already. The mining pond, the location of the mobile home park, South Lebanon. It's just, it's not the rural location that they used in their application information. I do question why it wasn't until the end of the last meeting that they came up with the statement that the property that had already been zoned for their use was now no longer available and was gonna be used as a school. I don't see that any action has been taken for that. And Restoration Ranch has raised money since 2020 for this ranch, but they've never started anything on the property that was designated for it. And I think that that probably concludes what I have to say, because I've said it all in my letter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Hi. Thank you so much. Oh, so after listening to everybody, and I just can so relate to a lot of them that recently came forward, especially as the opponents. My name is Candy Spence. I was a former insider with the Darling Bishop Home for Life. I worked as the house mom, and I was also a direct care staff. And I was there during the launch of Restoration Ranch. I saw a lot, and they say if you see something, say something, and I saw something and said something, and things just did not go well after that, because I had to ask some hard questions. And to somebody like Lawrence Bishop, you don't ask hard questions. If you do, if you talk about money, or if you talk about, you know, just different reasons why they are doing what they're doing, they don't take that very well. And so I have some notes here. I have recordings. I don't know if you want to hear them. They are from one of his top staffers that I recorded on a phone conversation that I had with her. And she was responsible for training the individuals that came in and wanted to be a part of Restoration Ranch just as an employee. And she explained some things, and I can play it at your request, but it's a very short, but it talks about how these boys are, and Lawrence said they're not that bad now, but she says they're the worst of the worst. They're wards of the state. They are just, this is the last stop that they go to before they go to juvenile prisons and jails. They are just, and my heart goes out to them. I wanted to help. I mean, I worked with ministering to women on the female side. You know, I worked at that home, and just the staff is, and I believed every single one of those staff from the bottom of my heart. I believe that their heart was for those children and for those kids. On the other hand, on the leadership side, let me just kind of go through some of my notes. I'm not here as a resident. I am actually from the neighboring county of Butler County. But more importantly, as a former insider who witnessed the inner workings of what went on with the Bishop Family Residential Ministries, and specifically the launch of Restoration Ranch, and like I said, the Darling Bishop Home for Life. And I believe it's a business model masquerading as a charity, honestly, due to the financial incentive to take in at-risk youth. Lawrence Bishop just said when he first started, he said he saw somebody come up to the front with two baby infants that were foster infants. They were twins. I was there in the service at the time. And he said, just my heart was so full, and I just wanted to I wanted to start an orphanage. And I believe at the outset, I think that originally, his original intent was pure. I think he really wanted to help. I think he wanted to just give, just do something along the lines of what his mom did. And he says, Mom did the Darling Bishop Home for Life. I want to do Restoration Ranch. But when he found out how much money there was at taking in not just infants and not just children that just get removed from their home, but at risk, it was a purposeful thing that they did to take in those that have, they say that children in foster care have PTSD, some of them worse than veterans of war.
because of they're taken, a lot of them are taken because they're, it's poverty. They're just in poverty, and they get taken from their homes, and instead of helping the parent, a lot of times it's a single parent, instead of helping the parent with what's going on with her and her inability to afford, a standard of living, they take them because of, and there are books written on it. A gentleman by the name of Daniel Hatcher, he's an advocate for foster youth, and he's written the book called The Poverty Industry and of Injustice Incorporated. It's a wonderful read, and that's what kind of got me in trouble. I started reading, I started finding a few things out, I started attending meetings and back office meetings and meetings with Lawrence and I started recording. And I started recording these meetings, and it wasn't until the aftermath and after I had left the ministry, because I lived on the campus, I lived there for 8 years, and my husband did as well, and we saw so much. And when we saw that they were getting rid of a perfectly good ministry because they weren't bringing in enough money, and when they found out that they could make this kind of money with at-risk foster youth up to $3,500 per month per child, and that's just them as a resident. That doesn't include when they get fostered out. So they're also a foster agency. So you come in as a person that wants to foster a child, and you become a foster care parent or an adoptive parent, and you adopt one of the kids out of Restoration Ranch, they get money coming and going. So, so don't let their compliance on their 990s, because they're just checking all the boxes, but it's not. I believe they're just providing the bare minimum on that, just to get the person that's just probably overworked at the IRS to just say, okay, this is okay. You do something like what that Nick Shirley guy did that went to Minnesota and walked into those, shell of a company. Do something like that at Restoration Ranch, and I'd want to see that if they really have 10 children there. But the applicant, Lawrence Bishop, is asking you to grant a planned unit development status to rezone 9 acres. You already know all that. And from what I understand, a planned unit development allows them somewhat to customize their own rules. I don't know, but they're asking you for this exception because a standard residential zone cannot legally support the corporate size volume required to keep their multi-million-dollar revenue pipeline alive. So if you look at their IRS filings, on 2022, their gross revenue, their total income was only $218,000. Their net income after expenses was $32,000. But in 2024, their gross income was $1,033,155, and their net income was $224,000. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but between 22 and 24, the operations gross revenue exploded by $815,000, and net profit pocketed at the end of the year jumped from $32,000 to $224,000, representing a 588% increase in pure net surplus over a 24-month period of time. So for 4 years, Lawrence Bishop collects hand over fist donations, not just money that he's billing the state, but he's also taking in donations. He's having auctions where people are just giving because, we all wanted to give. I was part of that culture. We gave to this ministry because we thoroughly believed in the mission. It wasn't until we started asking the hard questions. And when we started asking the hard questions, then it turned into what do they call it when you, they turned on me and just started making up all kinds of things about me. And so it's like, it's just to kind of divert from what the problem was. So what they did for 4 years, they billed the state of Ohio for the residents and billed even more when the boys left. I told you that. Holding annual auctions. People donated high dollar items, new Corvettes, under the explicit promise that the money would fund a custom, this is the 30,000 square foot facility on the church's north campus that you all approved, to house 36 boys, okay? But before they did that, they commandeered the Lawrence Bishop Family Center, which you probably heard from the previous meeting, which I wish I would have been here, but I wasn't, I didn't know about it. But they made it to where they could take in 12 boys and at least get the money rolling. So the board needs to ask where, and I don't know if it is even relevant to this. I mean, if it's just to zoning, then it's not, okay. Then, well, I don't know. I would say where's that fundraising money? Why is the original 30,000 square foot project dead? And was the donor money quietly repurposed to buy the new acquisition, the 810,000 movie theater on Dixie Highway? So Lawrence Bishop could launch his own separate church after there has been a toxic family feud that has left him ousted and legally banned from Solid Rock Church's property. So he has to leave Solid Rock. He can't be there. And as you heard, it's, you know, September 1st was when they got to leave. So he is stranded with this lucrative state and federally funded pipeline, but minimal to zero access to the church land where the original Restoration Ranch resides right now. So this is a desperate pivot onto Shawhan Road that he hasn't I don't think he's even acquired it yet. I mean, I think it all is based on what you all tell him, whether or not he's able to lease it or acquire it. But the entire acquisition will most likely depend on whether you give him the green light to let him bypass the normal zoning requirements and what he's trying to force onto Shawhan Road. And what I believe it is just trying to squeeze an intensive residential treatment facility, foster care program into a 3-bedroom residential house. And I don't know if he's planning on building more bedrooms, but this is what his mother told us when they wanted to commandeer the Darling Bishop Home for Life. She comes in, she says, we can have 3 to a room. You know, we had 16 rooms in there, so you do the math. There was a lot of kids, and that's what that was the original plan, to get enough money to build the 30,000 square foot building on the church's property that you guys approved the zoning for. So that was, you know, the deal there. But to me, it's just an unethically staggering drop in infrastructure. He's flailing. He doesn't know what to do. But from a business standpoint, it makes perfect sense. Minimize the overhead, maximize the bodies in the beds, 3 to a room if possible, pocket the state and federal funds. Don't take my word for it, because I have recordings of Lawrence Bishop himself when he launched Restoration Ranch, using his exact words from a recorded 2020 launch meeting with his former executive director, Tony Rose. And that is true, whoever said it. There's a lot of turnover because, listen, if you start asking questions, you're gone, or it's maddening to work for the man. These two men were Tony Rose and Scott Halcomb were the very men, along with Steve Ury, the one that he was talking to you about, were the ones that made this all happen. They knew what the state of Ohio would do.
Ma'am, we're not here to debate please try to keep it to the zoning question.
Oh, okay.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Did you ever work for the Restoration Ranch?
I did not work for the Restoration Ranch. I was there during their launch.
Okay. So you didn't work for them, and this is really about a zoning question that's related to the fact that the roadway that this home is on does not fit the usage they want to put it to.
Okay.
So that's what we're focusing on,
Okay.
is a zoning issue. And you seem to be talking an awful lot about Solid Rock Church and the inner whatever is going on
I just
there.
think that the backstory in the puzzle.
It really doesn't matter
Is,
to us.
I think it matters probably to your community, and I get that, I totally get that
Well,
respectfully.
It's just not the zoning issue.
I do.
I mean, they've told us that they're been told they have to leave. And I don't know the reasons for that.
Mhm.
I mean, we can surmise all we want to, but they've told us that they have to leave. And
Yeah.
there is a zoning question to that, because right now, one of the reasons why the previous, planning body denied this was because they said there was another accessible place to do it. So that's a relevant question, is it accessible or not? And they're saying, no, we're being forced to leave, we're being forced to, that's not accessible. So that's an issue before us. But really, exactly why they're doing this, that's just speculation on our part as
Yeah.
to what's going on. We don't know.
Yeah, from an insider who was there, I was there, I have the meetings, I'm not just saying they said things, they said
But
things.
you didn't work for Restoration Ranch.
I didn't work for, no, but I was there during the
But
launch.
again, I don't wanna go down the road, we've been trying to be
I get it.
respectful of everybody, I don't want people disparaging other people, you've got your opinion on that. I don't wanna hear it, honestly, I wanna move on and stick to the facts of, should we approve this PUD or not?
Well, you should not. For somebody that is wanting to do this now for the, like I said, the employees, I believe the employees have a heart for these kids. And I think that they would do a good job at, doing the best that they can to do what it is that they do, and that is, try to rehabilitate these kids. But as for the leadership is definitely, it's a financial incentive for them to do so, and I think it would be in the county's best, or not in their best interest to approve it, and I would definitely say no and encourage you to say no. So thank you anyway for listening to me, and I think that it had a lot to do with more of the community, and I'm glad you did listen as long as you did. So,
Thank you for
all
being
right,
here.
thank you so much.
My name is Dennis Fox. I live on 696 Shawhan Road, just above where the Restoration Ranch is going to be put. And one thing I would ask you guys is, the policymakers for this, okay? Your job is to benefit what's best for the community, am I correct?
Our job is to apply the law.
Obviously,
zoning.
when you
There's
say
zone-
so.
There's zoning regulations that we have that exist right now. We're
I agree.
responsible for
I
zoning
agree.
in Union Township.
But basically, you get elected by doing what's best for your community.
Yeah, sure, but
Okay.
we have to follow
So,
the law.
as you can see, and I agree what they do is probably a great thing. I'm a Christian myself. I believe in helping people. Me and my wife and my church, we run a food pantry. We help a lot of people. But I will tell you this, as you look around and you hear the feedback you're getting today, take that into consideration, okay, of what you're doing to this community, okay? That's what I would ask you. Be prayerful about it, and you do the right thing, okay? And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anyone else wish to address the board? I know you have asked to redress the board, but seeing none, I will give you a couple of moments to respond before we close the hearing. No, we can continue it in progress, but I meant for the day.
And by the way, and there's some questions that I'd like to answer to. In addition to, and it might be part of your rebuttal if that's what this is. I'd like to know, I am assuming that you have a contract to purchase that's contingent upon the change in the zoning. I'd like to know whether that's true or false.
True, that's correct.
That's correct? Okay, so the worst thing that could happen to you is you don't purchase. The seller doesn't have a buyer if this doesn't happen, right?
Correct.
And you don't have any adverse consequence except you can't build there or do your place there, correct? I mean, my point is this, you are not under a binding contract to purchase
No,
this
certainly not,
property
no.
if we don't approve the zoning change.
There's a zoning contingency in
Okay,
the contract.
that's what I'm asking. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all again for your time and attention. We want to first address some of the specific concerns that were raised to make sure that you have the correct information. And I want to zoom out and make sure that we're all focused on the right things. So there were several statements that I would say amounted to just generalized speculation about what troubled youth might do. And I would respectfully submit that based on the information that you have actually received today, that concern is more grounded in fear than actual facts about these kids.
How do you define that, Counselor, on what your staff has represented or the sheriff's report with the actual calls for service?
Yeah, it's the calls for service.
Which one of those should I be thinking?
I think there is a misconception that the kids at issue here are violent criminals that pose an imminent threat to the actual physical safety of the residents.
Well, I think that's one component. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about theft and break-in and auto theft, which clearly has been demonstrated in the record.
Commissioner, I would respectfully disagree with your characterization about a lot of testimony on that point. What you have heard already is that primarily the kids that get placed at Restoration Ranch fall in the category of abuse and neglect. They are not there because of something they did. It is something that an adult or someone in power did that put them in a very unfortunate situation. That most of them are not dangerous, they're not criminals, they don't have a criminal record, and that there are procedures in place for screening out kids that potentially do have issues like that they are not a good fit for this place to live. There was also a suggestion that these kids are drug addicts. That is also not supported by the information that you have actually received. So I just want to turn it over to Mr. Santucci again to emphasize the procedures they have in place for screening these kids and the types of kids that are actually going to be living, because that's important for you to understand when you talk about what these quote-unquote troubled youth might do.
Thank you. So I know I covered it already, thank you again. Just to reiterate, so part of our screening process, once we get their paperwork, we're looking for violent offenses, predatory behavior, ongoing criminalistic behavior. So most of the kids that we will then take to interviews would not include those behaviors. The point that JP brought up about being generalized as addictions, what I would respectfully say in front of this board, one person's experience in foster care and trauma and troubles is not everybody's experience. So I can appreciate an individual's experience and what their mentality and mindset was and when they were ready to get healthy, but that's not across the board with kids. Our kids go to school now. They can get drugs whenever they want. They can walk to the gas station and steal stuff whenever they want. So this idea that they're getting exposed to new things is just inaccurate in my opinion. Our kids have access to a lot of things currently. The last thing I will say to let you go back, we have a lake on campus as well. So this idea that they're gonna fall into a lake is also inaccurate. We have a lake on campus and our kids don't just fall into a lake. Now, a further challenge are our kids.
Well, it's not necessarily,
Yeah.
sort of that they fall into the lake, but there's a lot of calls for suicide issues.
Gotcha. Okay,
And that,
there?
to you, according to the sheriff's
Oh,
report.
I thought you meant on the Cheyenne property, I'm sorry.
No, to your facility, a lot of calls, right, Sheriff, am I reading that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That there was a lot of calls regarding suicide, and I think there's a
Gotcha.
natural humanistic issue of, wait a second, we have a lake there and some kids are
Mhm.
predetermined to do, are we just setting them up for something bad? So
Fair.
I don't think it's any bad,
Fair. Yeah, just similar concern.
But you're saying it already exists?
Correct. Yeah, we already have a lake on
For
our
the
campus.
10 kids you have currently?
Yep, 100%, sorry.
All the past kids as well, it's been there.
And all the past kids, yeah, that we've served, I believe, 74.
Yeah, 75 kids.
Okay.
Those were all part of the drug addiction classes requirement. Okay. My apologies.
Good catch.
Thank you. Through our screening process, drug addictions is part of the screening process. If someone's addicted to drugs,
That is a conversation we have. When was the last time you used drugs? Are you addicted? If there is an issue, there is automatically peering with our therapist that you met earlier today. So there are drug addiction classes that they complete if that is an issue. But we rarely have drug addicted kids.
Especially ones that hadn't already been stabilized.
So are you
by
saying that
treatment.
you screen out if a boy has a history of adjudicated misuse of drugs, you do not accept those
They have
into
to
your
have-
home any longer?
They have to be stabilized prior to coming. So he's going to the hospital.
Stabilized, that means that you've got a report from some agency or medical doctor that says the person is no longer addicted to this drug? Or no longer abusing it? Is that what stabilization means?
They've gone through a program to state that.
Okay.
Stabilize
There were also some statements about the condition of the driveway. I think the word used was precarious. At the Regional Planning Commission hearing, the county engineer was there. He specifically said on the record that he had no concerns about access. So, you know, but we really don't see that as an issue here. There was a repeated suggestion that the property would not be serving Warren County residents. Commissioner Grossman, you correctly pointed out that that's not necessarily true. Just because they don't have Warren County residents right now doesn't mean that they never have.
Well, you already testified about this. You
Yeah.
said that you had Warren County
Yeah.
residents, they come in and out, you mentioned the specific. I accept it as a given that right now, you either have none or you only have one maybe. But in the past, you've had Warren County residents, you accept Warren County residents, you accept non-residents. I get it.
Correct. There were several comments about former employees and extensive comments from one person who claimed to know some former employees. We agree, Commissioner Young, that is really not accurate to what you, I'm sorry, not relevant to what you are here to decide today, which is whether the standards of the zoning code are met. So I'm not gonna get into everyone's opinion about the, you know, what happened 5 or 6 years ago, but Mr. Santucci, is it fair to say that generally the statements about former employees are not accurate?
About and from, that's correct.
Okay. Well, we'll just leave it at that. If you have further questions about specific things that were said, we're happy to rebut it, but we really don't think that's germane to what you are here to decide today. Again, the idea that there's a divorce between Solid Rock Church and Restoration Ranch, not quite sure that matters either, but to the extent that it does matter, it's directly contradicted by what you already heard, that as a tenant, they are not going to be permitted to occupy that property anymore. And Mr. Johnson, is it correct that you cannot use that property anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
But Counselor, I think that is germane. Again, this was somewhat contentious 5.5 years ago, or whatever. As Commissioner Grossman said, the Turtle Creek Township trustees opposed this. They didn't want us to do this. But yet, at least from my own perspective, it's a godly mission. It's gotta happen. You know, I always try to look at the facts. Do we have troubled youth? We do. Do we have our own fair share of troubled youth inside of Warren County? We do. But we also bend over backwards trying to take care of those folks and our youth and our sense of community, which is something that I asked about earlier when people use that term and kind of throw it around. But we bent over backwards to support the mission of Restoration Ranch and go against our largest township telling us, please don't do this, and we said okay. Because we had some discretion, and in our discernment, we thought, if there's a place for this to go, it's by a highway, it's by a racino, it's an industrial area, there's not a lot of residential, not a lot, there's no residential people around, and we made the determination, if it's gonna happen, and go out on the limb and say, we're gonna serve a lot of kids, admittedly, that aren't even from our community, this is where it should happen.
And so when you say it's not relevant, I think it is relevant that we bent over backwards to provide this ministry a place to do their business. And now, for whatever reason, their partner in this endeavor, the church, is saying, you can't be here anymore. That is germane.
The issue there, it cuts in favor of this. And that's the strange part about this. Because the fact that, if it's true, and I don't see any contradiction to this, the criteria we're looking at is, one is there another area that you can use? And the one area that they said could be used is the one we approved, and now we're being told indisputably, because it's not disputed, that you're not allowed to use it any longer. So now I'm looking at the catch-all thing. And it's not that, I'm not expressing an opinion one way or the other about it, but it seems to me that if the one area that we approved, that you've used, cannot be used any longer, that apparently favors granting, or at least it's not a criteria that you can use to say that you're not entitled to the current zoning application. I mean, that's, as I understand it, that's what the law is. And by the way, so everybody should know this, we're obligated to follow the law. And we've created zoning regulations that we're obligated to follow. So, but we also care deeply about the residents in this community and their feelings. It's important for us to take that into consideration. And that helps to, inform us about what people want. But here's the bottom line too. The only reason why zoning is constitutional, and this is a big hot topic that was before the United States Supreme Court. Counselor, you probably know this because you went to law school. So the question was, under what right does any community have to tell a property owner that he may not use that property for his own blessing and use? Because it's his property, it's not our property. So what justified zoning? The thing that the Supreme Court said in the 1920s when they ruled on this is they said that zoning is founded upon principles of nuisance. Nuisance, that is, if you use your property in such a way to cause a nuisance, an unreasonable nuisance to other people that have adjoining properties or nearby, that's the justification for zoning regulations. So, I come back to what we have to do today. And that is, I think that the general kind of argument that residents are making is that they fear that this usage will cause them a major nuisance. And that's what I'd like to hear. That's why we're asking so many questions about runaways, predatory act against the community, what the sheriff is telling us he's having to do to respond. Now, it was remarkable. Maybe it's not remarkable, but in 2026, there's only 8 calls. 8, that's it. 8 to this date. 1 for a missing person runaway. Another one was just a phone call. Another one was a missing person runaway. Another one, disorderly conduct, I assume, at site. Then a missing person runaway, disorderly conduct, intoxication. Oh, by the way, the other disorderly conduct was intoxication too. And then a phone call. So the primary thing that's been happening is 1, 2, 3, 4 runaways. I think that that's what the people are concerned about.
Yeah, but if we're gonna start talking about the list, if we go back to September of '25, theft of auto, public assistance, vandalism, suicide assistance, assault, menacing. I mean, there's stuff.
Oh yeah, and there is stuff, and there's a lot of stuff. But and then I was asking the question, which is it stuff that's happening in the house, or is it stuff that's happening outside the house? And I think the principal concern of your neighbors with the nuisance concept is that they fear runaway, they fear someone leaving your premises and committing crimes in their community. And that's a legitimate question about these kind of institutions. And a lot of that, as to whether that's happening, is on you all. How do you control your house? How do you keep the kids from running away? What do you do when that happens? What kind of supervision is going on? Okay, so I mean, I need to know more information from the sheriff. I want to find out about the school thing, okay? Because I still don't understand the funding thing. But that's really it. I think that, I mean, you guys are gonna make the decision whether this property works to you. I don't imagine you're gonna have a major stabling operation on this property. With 9 acres, because this is my I grew up on a horse farm. I still operate 2 horse farms in Hamilton County. I'm very familiar with this line of work. You cannot have a lot of horses on 9 acres. You have to have at least 4 acres per horse, at least 4 per horse if you're gonna pasture it. You don't have horses on this place. I don't know. Maybe you can have 1, maybe 2, I don't know. Well, my guess is, to the extent you do the horse thing, it's gonna be back at where you were doing it before.
Correct.
Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
1 or 2
So I don't
inside,
think
yeah.
you're gonna have horses there. And never thought that. I was never under the illusion that you were gonna do a horse boarding operation on this little piece of property.
Just say that
Oh,
loud.
I'm sorry. Correct, so we're gonna continue to use, Pastor Lawrence's horse
That's
farm
what I thought.
for predominantly the large sessions, and then we will wanna have 1 or 2 on site for other therapeutic
Yep.
interventions throughout the
I
time.
get it.
Or like a one-on-one riding session, things of that nature.
I mean, I really understand, I think, the issues here. Is there anything else? I mean,
I wanna make sure you feel like you've gotten ample time, but
Well,
I am trying to wrap this thing up.
Commissioner Grossman, I genuinely think you have heard an extensive amount of testimony already about the procedures they have in place to supervise the kids.
Mhm.
But we can summarize that again. Mr. Santucci, and you want to talk about day-to-day
We'll try to keep it
supervision of the
brief.
kids?
I'll keep it high level, and if you have any more appropriate.
Well, I mean, do you guys have a locked down, are you planning
good
on
question.
locking the kids in? I mean, look, if you have delinquent kids who have committed predatory crimes, and I know that you're screening for this apparently much better, and the one commentator said, well, doing it now, but maybe you're not gonna do it later, okay? So, if you're taking on boys that have committed assault, battery, burglary, those types of things, I'm just asking a
Yeah.
question, I know you're gonna tell me no, you're not gonna take it.
You're not.
But how do you prevent them from walking out the door? If this is a normal residence, are you gonna put bars on the windows, or what are you gonna do?
That's against state law.
Good question.
Well, yeah,
so
but I
we're-
mean, it doesn't seem to me, this facility is a residence, do you modify it in some way to keep kids from running away?
Yeah, so with the property that we're looking at in Shawhan Road, there'll be less points of entry and exit for the kids based on the layout of where we would be. Currently now, I think I shared it in my introduction, there's a lot of exits in our current facility, which is why we had struggles more so in 24, 25. And then, we built some new procedures, which you also asked about. So what the supervision looks like is we're obviously supervising the kids by sight and sound.
You got 24-hour people there.
24/7, yep. So that's what it looks like, but in our current situation, we could just be sitting in the lobby, have an escalation, and there's 10 doors, and now I'm out the door. So that is not gonna be an obstacle for us in our new facility, but we have adjusted our staffing that I showed you, adjusting our position, we kind of created different places in the facility to eliminate that possibility. And I think our numbers show that we are improving on that. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Sure, I mean, we all know too, that you are providing a service that needs to be provided. The question is whether this is the right location, that's the whole question.
Sure.
And because of it not being it's not on a local road, it's not on the type of road that our regulations require for doing your kind of facility, that's why you're seeking a modification to that. I mean, I don't think that our zoning really anticipated a problem with something like you're doing, but nevertheless, we follow our zoning code and we follow the law. That's our obligation.
So I think that's a great segue to what I wanted to wrap up with, which is let's zoom out all of the testimony that we've heard here today. What's the actual standard of review that you are here to administer? And what recommendations have you actually had from the bodies that are in place to help you make that decision? So the county planning staff issued a report to the Rural Planning Commission recommending approval with conditions of this project. The only condition, the only substantive condition that was not reflected in the plan itself was additional landscaping. So at the Planning Commission hearing, the Planning Commission also recommended approval of this project. They went through all of the standards that you are applying here today, and they determined that those standards were met. They only modified the staff's recommendation by recommending approval as is, without the additional landscaping, particularly because they were looking at the court-ordered no zone for an abandoned mine and determined that expensive landscaping along those boundary lines was really not necessary or justified. The only body that has recommended denial is the Zoning Commission, after a lengthy hearing at which many of the opponents that spoke today voiced many of the same concerns.
And that was a vote of 4 people, right?
That's correct.
But the previous one that approved it was a vote against it with like 4 or 5 people, and a vote for it by 5 or 4 people. So you had a 1 vote majority to approve it. 6-5, okay, you're right.
I believe that's correct, yes.
So you had
If you're
one-
keeping tally.
Yeah, I am keeping tally.
Yes.
And so you had a vote for your plan, and a fair majority, and then you had 4 people who voted against it in the second.
Yes, Commissioner. I just want to also emphasize that the staff itself recommended approval to the Planning Commission.
The staff did?
Yes, that was in the staff report.
Okay.
So the Zoning Commission's recommendation of denial was only based on 2 items, and you properly highlighted those at the beginning. The first is section 1.304.5D of the zoning resolution. Is the proposed zoning compatible with the present uses, nearby uses, and the character of the surrounding area? And the second is section 1.304.5G, which is, are there available sites in the county that are already zoned for the proposed use? So I respectfully submit that based on what you have heard here today, the basis for that denial is not present here. Both of those factors weigh in support of the proposed application here. Talking about
To
D.
repeat your second point, is there current zoning in the county? Say that again?
The quote that I wrote down, this is just in my notes, but I believe it reads, are there available sites elsewhere in the county that are already zoned for the proposed use?
Does that exist? Is the answer to that question yes or no?
I would argue that that does not exist in this case.
I would think there is. The answer to that question right now is yes.
I mean, I find it.
I understand your point, Commissioner.
Well, let me-
My response would simply be that the intent of that provision is clearly to determine whether the proposed use is possible anywhere else in the county.
So
And
here's the.
on these facts, that
So are
is-
you
that is not
testifying
true.
that you think this is the only possible site in Warren, 400 square miles of Warren County? This is the only site?
Commissioner,
Is that what you're testifying?
I'm not testifying, I'm providing an argument, but
Okay.
you did hear from the Realtor, who's a professional broker at Coldwell Banker, that she worked with Restoration Ranch to figure out what were their criteria for a site and what made sense based on those criteria in Warren County. That they identified 4 sites, and that this one that they have under contract right now is the only one that ended up being viable.
Well, here's what I don't understand about this. Their example, the staff example of the site that is available in Warren County is the one you're currently on, that apparently you're being denied. But I think that Commissioner Young's question is, you mean that there aren't lots of other properties that have the zoning that would make this compatible? I mean, my guess is there would be, you just couldn't find a place right now, because your real estate agent said she looked all over the place and found maybe 4 places, but really there was only 1 that she could find. And I don't know how that jives. I'm gonna ask our lawyer for some help on this. because it's hard to believe that there isn't something in the county, someplace that would work with this. I don't know. But I'm taking it just on the evidence presented, and the evidence presented, there's one other location, it's the one we've already approved, which now you're being denied, which I do not think is disputed.
That's a Hobsonian choice.
Yes.
And certainly, if Solid Rock Church wants to turn that into a school, they'll likely need to rezone it at some point. I would respectfully submit that it would not make any sense to require us to unzone our own property and kick ourselves out.
But the question then I go back to in the zoning issue is locating something within some proximity of residences. So it's not, it does appear to be very rural in the sense that it's sort of got a cove all around it, which is agricultural. There is a slope, I think, to the south of the property. I don't know how steep it is, but it looks like there is. And then there's a cemetery across the way. But there are a lot of houses that are, probably within 500, 600 yards. And then there is this big trailer park, which has got, I don't know how many hundreds of trailers for people that are there. But, yeah, maybe 120, something like that. I didn't know, I didn't count it, but I've seen it. And so the question, in my view, is, does the fact that there are residences with children nearby create a basis to deny this? And I'd like to know the law on that.
But, Commissioner Grossman, ultimately, this is a legislative determination. You are trying to determine what is reasonable and in the public interest in this instance. So I can't tell you that there's a black and white answer under the law.
Well, I'm assuming that if there was some law on this that said that, you would tell me that.
Well, here's what I will say. You have been provided with specific criteria in your code to guide your discretion as to what is in the public interest in this case. The alternative site criterion that the zoning commission cited, again, we respectfully submit doesn't apply in this instance. So you're really just looking at D, which is the proposed zoning compatible with the present uses, nearby uses, and the character of the surrounding area. Both your county staff and your planning commission looked at the actual abutting land uses, which are CAUV, a park, and a cemetery, and determined that there was compatibility. They also looked at the future land use map in the comprehensive plan, which calls for this to remain low-density residential. This is 9 acres at up to 21 residents is what we're proposing. That's just over 2.3 residents per acre. That's extremely low density.
How many per room, if there's 3 bedrooms? I mean, what?
It will vary. We're gonna have some single bedrooms, some double bedrooms, and triple bedrooms.
And Counselor, you left out the part about, isn't there an issue that in our purview relative to a collector road?
That is the reason that we're here, absolutely. The only reason that we are in the rezoning process at all is because if we were trying to pursue a by right zoning approval, this use would have to be located on a collector road. And I would argue that restriction particularly does not make sense because it would push this land use into a denser, busier part of your county. I think actually the applicant and the residents are aligned that this should be in a rural area. They simply disagree about how rural is rural enough.
Well, and that's the question I've got.
So I don't think anyone's arguing that this should be located.
I have a practical question here because I with the board's agreement, I'd like to continue this in progress because I don't think the board is prepared to make the decision today. But I have heard you about the timeliness of it, so I'd like to understand from you the realities with your relocation.
Well, I think that I'd like, and let's answer this question as well by saying, do you have a contract? Typically, a real estate contract has a time period. Do you have a time period that you should inform us about where you need a decision from us?
It's really as soon as possible.
Well, that doesn't help me.
If you want a decision from me right now, I'm willing to give you one myself.
Do you have to close by a certain time?
Or is there a deadline for your zoning contingency?
No, that's my knowledge. No.
I think
So
practically
there's
though,
It's
no,
probably within a reasonable period of time.
Yes, I think where time comes in for us is just knowing our exit in the fall, and then
No, but you got a real estate contract. That real estate contract has got a time period on it, does it not? I mean, Counselor, have you seen the real estate contract?
What's that
We'll
matter?
double check.
Well,
I'm
it
only,
does matter.
Commissioner Gressman, I'm only engaged on the zoning side. I haven't seen it. I agree that this is a.
You've not seen the
important
purchase
issue.
contract?
I have not.
I suggest you look at that.
But practically, they will need to submit for the other two stages of their PUD before they can get building permits. So absolutely, timing is a concern here. And, you know, I understand if the board is inclined to continue, you know, we would respect that decision. We would simply ask to resume the hearing in progress at the absolute earliest opportunity. Thank you.
I want to do one thing before you all leave today. Can I do that?
with these folks?
Yeah, no, you guys can sit down. I'm gonna show the audience that's still remaining something. Can you put up the picture that I asked guys to put up? Okay. I wanna show you something. This is in Springfield Township, Ohio. That's the farm I grew up on. It's a horse farm. I bought the neighboring farm over here, too. We joined that way. This all was part of the farm that I grew up on. All of this property, all of these houses, everything was there, all part of the farm. This is an extremely nice subdivision that's in Wyoming. That's Hillcrest School. What's Hillcrest? Now, my father was a juvenile court judge. So Hillcrest is this. In 1977, my dad became a judge in 1975. Hamilton County Commissioners transferred jurisdiction of Hillcrest to Hamilton County Juvenile Court rather than the Welfare Department. Construction began on a new facility, a village of small cottages on Hillcrest at 246 Bonham Road in Springfield Township. That's this. And in 1978, Hamilton County consolidated Glenville and Hillcrest schools and completed a new $5 million residential facility to house 156 boys and girls ages 12 to 17. Those boys and girls are all juvenile delinquents, abused and neglected children. All of them, all 156. I lived next door to that. Maybe I'm the only one in the room that has been living next to a way larger facility. I lived there for 30 years. And there was one occasion where we had a runaway from this place. My dad and I were fencing out here. And this young lady galloped onto us and met my dad. And she exclaimed, "Oh my God, you're everywhere." Because he put her there. And what I can tell you is, after that occurred, these are $1 million homes, were built there. I don't know what the experience of Springfield Township is with this facility. I can find out. But I can tell you, I lived this. I lived there my whole life, right next to that facility. And we never had any problems. And you can see all the homes all over. These homes were all there. We put these homes, there's a big subdivision there, there's homes all down. This area on Bonham Road, they're all houses. A whole bunch of them. And then there's feeder streets all over the place. And this is not 20 kids, not 15, not 10, 156.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yeah, you can ask questions, sure.
That was in 19 what?
Well, it currently exists. This is now, it's still there. I still operate this stabling operation. I own this property over here. My children live there. I grew up on this house and with these stables. This one right here you see, I roofed that in 1977 while I was in college. It took me all summer long. James Taylor had a #1 hit song that summer called Up on a Roof. And I spent the entire summer up on a roof. But my point to you is, I am very familiar with living next to a way bigger restoration ranch. I did it for my entire childhood, and it was right here, right there.
Would you agree that the drugs and the culture are the same as they are today?
Well, I lived through a lot of stuff. My dad put away a lot of those people. But all I'm saying to you is, I have personal experience living next to a way larger facility. 156 juvenile delinquents and abused and neglected children still live there. And what they did was, there used to be an older school there, but they put up a whole bunch of different cottages here, all of which have different, they've separated boys and girls, you have to believe in boys and girls back then. And they also separated from the classification of offenses. And each one of those units were secure units with people who live with them. But all I'm saying to you is that I'm probably the only one in this room who lived with this exact issue. Now, I don't know, that's maybe not the case, but I'm very familiar. How many acres was that? This property here? Yes, sir. Well, I mean, if you look at the proximity, this goes all the way down the road. There are about 80 acres. It goes all the way south for some distance. But the proximity from this to this is very short. I mean, this road is 1 mile long and it goes way, way down, 1 mile. The distance between here and here is a couple hundred yards. And this driveway that starts right here to my property, all the way back here, that's 1/3 of a mile. This was from this point here, which is our property line, up to this road right here is 1/2 mile. This was a few hundred yards. And what I'm saying is that I'm really familiar with living next to a very large facility.
Did you say that was a secured facility though?
Some of it, yeah, some of it's very secure. I mean, that's why I asked them the questions about how secure their facility is. This was a secure facility. It didn't mean that people couldn't run away, they did. And we had one that ran into us when we were fencing with my dad. But I will tell you that the people who built this extremely fine community, which actually was represented by my law firm, which was Taft Stinson Hollister, we did that development. This is $1 million homes. And they did it knowing all about this.
Yeah, they should.
They had a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not commenting about that. I agree with you. I'm just saying that I am familiar with this problem. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I lived next to it for my entire life. I moved into, this farm is where I grew up. I worked there the whole time.
Just because you did, doesn't mean we.
I know that. I understand that. That's not my point. My point is that this is a very large, it's 156 juvenile delinquents, and I lived right next door to it my entire life. Now, I'm not making any other point than to say I'm familiar with the issue. That's all I'm saying.
I'm familiar with being hungry. Can we try to get out of here?
So, Commissioner Grossman, Commissioner Young says he's prepared to make a decision today. My preference would be to continue the hearing in progress.
That's my because I've got some questions that I want answered.
I will agree with my two colleagues, although I'm in a position to make a decision now, but if my colleagues want to continue this, I'm fine with continuing it.
So I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing in progress until Tuesday, June the 16th.
I make a motion to do that.
At what time?
We can do, it's pretty packed that day, but you can do 10:30.
Do we have any issue, Bruce, in terms of when we have to make a decision? Is there a time limit?
Can I ask you a question, please?
After we accept it.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, please? Will this be a public meeting, the next one?
Yes.
Okay, any way you can do it in the evening for people that work,
I think that's a good idea.
please? I appreciate that. I did take a vacation day to be here today. So if you could do that and make sure we know when it is and when we need to be here, please.
25th. 25th.
The later.
That's a Thursday?
Oh, Thursday, yeah.
Why wouldn't we
I
do
may
it
be-
to the 23rd
I
since
may
we're?
be gone the 2 middle weeks of June for vacation, or 10 days in there. So it'd be better to have the
Okay,
board together.
so, what, you'd ask for an evening, for the other issue, which we're going to recess on the 23rd and bring in that issue, so we can.
That's the tax issue.
The tax issue. So what I'm saying is if we put it on the 23rd agenda for, following that,
6 or
we
6:30.
can continue it at, 6 or 6:30. So it would I believe, it would appear on the agenda at the end of the agenda, which would be at 10:30. But the plan is to recess and reconvene in the evening to accommodate that. So Bruce, how do we need to schedule it? Did you follow any of that?
A little bit of it.
Okay, so
Since
our
it's a continuation of progress, it does not need to be republished, but since we publish on the county's website now, it's a lot easier to do.
Okay.
So we can certainly do that.
And we've already got a meeting the evening of the 23rd.
So it's not a separate meeting, we're gonna be recessing the morning meeting, so we'll have business in the morning. But then we're going to recess and reconvene that same evening, so it's the same meeting. So that the intention would be, it would be on the morning's meeting at 10:30, but that we would take public comment that evening following the recess. I just wanna make sure we're putting it where we're sharing it appropriately.
So you have the sales tax public hearings that evening at
Yeah.
5:30.
Yeah, it's on the morning's agenda, and the intention is to recess that meeting and reconvene later to continue to take public testimony.
Was that noticed to anybody?
That I don't know, this was last week, so I think it's going to be noticed that way.
Okay. I guess it depends on how many people show up for your sales tax hearing and how long that takes.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it another day, I don't know when you're gonna be gone, and I know that we're gonna be.
That's dictated by my wife.
Okay, well, I hear you. I just need to know how to schedule it.
If we're already gonna be here on the 23rd, I don't know why we wouldn't just do it then.
Yeah. Unless Bruce tells me there's an issue with us doing it, that we'll schedule it for 10:30 on the morning of the 23rd. However, we will put on the notice and advise people that we intend to recess for the purposes of taking any additional testimony that evening, beginning, I think it's at,
5:30, so I would tell these good folks, maybe 6 o'clock,
Yeah,
6:30,
yeah.
that we'll be able to reconvene, and yeah, somebody said, is it gonna take this one? No, we're not taking tons and tons more public comment, but there's some question my colleagues want answered, so we'll hear testimony on that. And that's the only reason that we can't close this, is if there's open questions. Once you close it, you can't take any more testimony, so we have to keep it open, so they can get a few of their questions answered, and that has to be done in public. But we don't plan on, well, hopefully, there's not gonna be 50 people that wanna talk. It'll be answer the questions and make a decision.
Well, will we be getting questions from those that are in favor of it? And there is no leadership for those who are opposing it, so how do those who are opposing it get to voice themselves even further?
so you just have to.
Give them the opportunity to voice themselves further, we don't have that same opportunity.
Well, we aren't looking to take additional testament, like if you're here today and want to provide testimony, we will accept your testimony now. What we're looking to do is to be able to get some questions answered that have surfaced from this, and so we will get that information, and then we will make a decision.
You won't have any questions to those who are against it?
I'm sorry, I
You
keep,
don't have any questions for those who are against this?
So the
Because
questions-
we don't have one person that speaks for everybody.
yeah, so the questions that we're looking to get answered were questions that were raised today. So the questions specifically around the school funding, so wanting to understand the flow of those funds. And then there's some questions that have been raised around the police calls. And so that's some information that we're hoping to get. And so we will get that information at this continued hearing. And then we'll, take action at that point in time. So it's not intended to be able to take more testimony except for the specific questions that this testimony has, surfaced for us that we just like to have some more information about. And so it was asked if we would render our decision in the evening. And so our intention is to put it on the agenda for Tuesday, the 23rd in the morning, but that we're already scheduled to recess that hearing and continue it in the evening anyway for a tax matter. And so we will then pick up our agenda in the evening to accommodate those who'd like to be here when we share our decision. Does that make sense to you?
So you're gonna talk about it in the evening?
Yes, yes. So our intention would be to talk about it in the evening, but it's going to show up on the Tuesday morning notice. We are going to recess and reconvene, and we'll make sure it's clear on the notice. I'm just giving you how it's gonna operate, so you don't see when it's at 10:30 in the morning that.
But it should say right there, to be continued immediately.
Yeah, so it'll be noticed in a way to.
So there'll be nothing in the morning meeting about it?
There will be other items in the morning meeting, but we won't be talking about this issue until we return in the evening. Okay?
Do we have the Board of Trustees might allow Chris Cook to answer any of these questions on this side of not wishing to have it, since we've already discussed that at our meeting, and he could represent any questions that needed to be answered at that.
Yeah, I wanted to compliment all you, again, number one, you're doing godly work. There's nothing that I'm coming across saying that's unreasonable. And the residents have been, for the most part, very well presented, very respectful, and you've got at least two elected officials here. You've got a school board member, and you've got, the head of your trustees here and another trustee. So all three trustees are here. Okay, sorry. That all three trustees are here, and it seemed like quite a few of the residents were kind of picking